Hi everyone, thanks for watching this recording. My name is Michelle Achterberg and I'm an assistant professor at Erasmus University Rotterdam. Today I will present on individual differences in developmental trajectories of social emotion regulation, evidence using longitudinal fMRI. So, as Lara introduced, the LCID project focuses on early and middle childhood, and my research line specifically focuses on middle childhood. My research is on social emotion regulation, and middle childhood is the phase in life where the first long-lasting friendships emerge. So dealing with social situations such as social feedback and rejection is an important prerequisite for developing and maintaining social relations. So some children, they just shrug after a child rejects them on the playground. They keep their head high and they just move on. However, other children, they get really frustrated and they use reactive aggression after they receive negative feedback. But what determines how a child reacts? And how come that some 9-year-olds behave more adult-like than others? So to examine this, I want to unravel the individual differences in developmental trajectories of social emotion regulation. And to experimentally examine social emotion regulation in childhood, we developed a new task, the social network aggression task. So prior to the lab visit, children fill in a personal profile with questions such as, what is your biggest wish? And during the scan, they see pictures of unknown peers with social feedback towards their profile. So this could either be positive, neutral, or negative. After the feedback event, children get the opportunity to react towards the peer that judged them by blasting a loud noise. And children can choose themselves whether they want to blast a short, soft sound or a long and loud noise. So in the past 6 years, we have done several studies using this paradigm, both in children, but also in adults. And behaviorally, we found strong effects in different samples that all show that negative feedback leads to the most aggression. Moreover, these cross-sectional studies, they show that older participants differentiate more between conditions. That is, the difference between conditions, positive, neutral, and negative, becomes more pronounced, and there are larger differences in noise blast. On a neural level, studies using the social network aggression task show that there is a neural network sensitive for general social salience, irrespective of its variant. So both positive and negative social feedback resulted in increased activation in the bilateral insula. Interestingly, variation in anterior insula activation has been related to variation in aggression regulation following negative feedback. So we previously found that children with increased activation in the anterior insula showed more aggression after social rejection. And David Chester and colleagues, they found a similar association, but in adults with low executive control and not in adults with high executive control. So possibly the association between insular activation and behavioral aggression is stronger in childhood than adolescence as executive control function increases across development. And as the current study includes longitudinal measures, we hope we can test for these developmental changes in brain behavior association. A second brain region that is often implicated in social behavior is the medial prefrontal cortex. So interestingly, when conducting whole brain analysis on social rejection, previous studies often failed to find significant neuroactivation after negative social feedback. However, in studies with larger samples and strong statistical power, we do report strong activation in the medial prefrontal cortex after social rejection in childhood. So possibly these effects might only be detectable using large samples because of many individual differences in the development of medial prefrontal cortex. And this is something that we can test using this LCID data. So both the anterior insula and the medial prefrontal cortex seem to be associated with social rejection. Another region that is have been found to be implicated using brain behavior associations is the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. So one brain behavior association that we have consistently found using the SNOT is the negative association between dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex activation after negative feedback and noise duration. So here plotted on the y-axis, you see the level of aggression, and on the x-axis, you see the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activation. So more dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activation is related to less behavioral aggression in 9 to 11-year-old children. Interestingly, if we look at the development from 7 to 8-year-olds to 9 to 11-year-olds, so 2 years later, we see that children that show the largest increase in dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activation across time are also the ones that show the largest decrease in behavioral aggression across time. So it seems that it's not just something that you do or don't have this aggression regulation, but it really is something that develops across development. And even within these 2 years, we see that stronger development is related to a stronger decrease in aggression. So better aggression regulation across time. So recent studies using the SNOT paradigm have shown 3 important brain regions that are related to processing social feedback: the anterior insula, medial prefrontal cortex, and the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. The insula has been shown to signal for social saliency, whereas the medial prefrontal cortex was specifically activated after social rejection, so and possibly is more sensitive to individual differences. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex has been shown to be important for social emotion regulation or aggression regulation. The development hereof seems to be are important in developmental differences in aggression regulation. So today, analysis have focused on between individual group level comparisons using aggregated scores. However, by taking a within individual approach, we can move beyond these aggregated mean scores and provide more insights into these individual differences in social emotion regulation. So why are some children more sensitive to social feedback, and how come that some 9-year-olds behave more adult-like than others? So in this study, we want to take advantage of within individual experimental design to estimate within individual neural and behavioral responses to social rejections. And we do so by moving beyond the aggregated scores to estimate development using multi-level models. So the SNOT behavioral data has a 4-level structure where repeated trials are nested within measurement waves. So we have 3 waves for each individual, and those are nested within individuals, and the individuals are nested again within families, as the LCID project is a twin study. So using a multi-level model, we can estimate individual responses to social rejection at the trial level and allow for changes in these responses across measurement waves, describe this development for individuals at the individual level, and take non-independence in the measurements due to the twinning into account at the family level. Doing so, we can estimate the multi-level model where beta 0 represents a random intercept and beta 1 the random slope. So this is both of which can vary across measurement waves, individuals, and families. So that's the subscripts I, F, and W. At level 2, we can then estimate the development of individual responses to rejections across age. And these are the gamma components that you see here. So the gammas reflect the growth components and both linear age as well as quadratic age. So for brain responses, we have a 3-level model, and we use the contrast values from negative versus neutral feedback at each wave to calculate the random intercept and slope. So here we also estimate development of individual responses to rejection using the gamma components at the level 2. So we haven't finished off the analysis yet, but I do want to show you a sneak peek of the developmental trajectories. So here I visualized behavioral data, and I've plotted all individual behavioral data of the social network regression task. And on the y-axis, you see the noise blast in milliseconds, and on the x-axis, I plotted the age. So each dot is one measurement, and each small line is one individual. And then the thick lines, they represent the group average. So as you can see, across development, the noise blast towards neutral feedback gradually decreases, so children become less aggressive in general. But for noise blast after negative feedback, we first see an increase across development and later a slight decrease around the start of puberty. So there does seem to be a differentiation between the conditions and how these behavioral regulation after different conditions develops across time. So as this is HBM, I guess you also like to see some preliminary brain data. So here I've plotted all individual dorsolateral prefrontal cortex data of the social network regression tasks. So again, on the y-axis, you see the parameter estimates of the DLPFC after negative and neutral feedback. And on the x-axis, again, you see age. So each dot is one measurement and each small line is one individual. And the thick lines represent the group average. So as you can see across development, on or between individual group level, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activation is quite stable. During late childhood though, so that is here in the middle, the time we also saw an increase in the noise blast for negative feedback, we do see a significant difference between negative and neutral feedback. And this is not significant in middle childhood and early puberty. So this might indicate that during the late childhood stage, there is actually something really interesting happening. So this preliminary visualization of data, it shows that both on a behavioral level, as well as in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, there is a developmental changes in late childhood, followed by a slight decrease in early adolescence. So in our next steps, we will examine this nonlinear pattern statistically and also conduct brain behavior associations to test how these two trajectories, brain and behavior, align with each other. Moreover, we want to examine whether the individual differences in development, so the random slopes, whether those are predictive for future social well-being, which we examined using a questionnaire 1 year after the last MRI session. And if you want to read more details about this project, please check out our pre-registration of this study at Open Science Framework using this QR code. So what I hope to show you is that there is strong development in social emotion regulation during childhood and emerging adolescence. Activation in dorsolateral prefrontal cortex has repeatedly shown to be related to the level of aggression regulation following social rejection. And this is not just a trait, this is something that develops across this age span. Our current study will provide insight on individual differences by moving beyond the aggregated score and you really use multi-level models to take this experimental design into account. And hopefully this study will provide us insights on individual differences in development of social emotion regulation and unravel which individuals are prone to thrive during development and which individuals might benefit from additional social and emotional support. And with that, I'd like to thank you. I also like to thank my collaborators on this project, Jeroen Mulder, Simone Doblaar, Stefan Heunis, and Evelien Kronen. And I would also like to thank my colleagues from the Leiden Consortium Individual Development, the Society Youth and Neuroscience Connected Lab, and the Department of Psychology, Education and Child Studies from the Erasmus University, Rotterdam. And of course, thank you for your attention.